Colosseum. Good morning everyone, I'm here in Rome. It's 6 AM and this is going to be my first run in my 40s. Now, Rome, historian's dream. I'm going to be running about 8 or 10 miles this morning, hopefully covering some of the historic sites of the Colosseum, the Forum, the Trevi Fountain, the Pantheon and so many more. Okay, let's go. There it is. Woo, first sight, the Colosseum. And look where I am, everyone. It's a Colosseum. So the Colosseum, built in 72 AD under Emperor Vespasian, and finished under the rule of Emperor Titus. This epic 70,000 seater stadium hosted gladiator battles, animal shows, and even plays. Now, entrance to this 70,000 seater stadium was actually free. However, where you sat very much depended on your social group. The rich, the wealthy, the emperors would be at the bottom, right next to the action, so they could smell and taste the blood, whereas the poor would be at the top, would be the first ones to know if it rained. Now, some interesting facts about the Colosseum was that it actually wasn't called the Colosseum. That's its nickname. The original name of the Colosseum is the Flavian Amphitheatre, and it was called the Colosseum in the Middle Ages. And the reason for that is when, in the Middle Ages, they uncovered a colossal statue of Nero, so they can name the Colosseum because it was right next to the statue. Now, speaking of emperors, the Colosseum is actually built on top of a lake that belonged to Nero's mad pleasure gardens, this huge indulgent pleasure garden. Now, when this mad emperor was committed suicide and the Flavians took over, they drained the lake and they built the Colosseum on top of it. Now, speaking of emperors, did you know some of the emperors like to partake in the games? Emperor Commodus, for instance, he wanted to fight with the gladiators. However, if any gladiator laid a blow on the emperor, it would have fatal consequences for them and their family. So it was a bit of a farce. Now, with all this history at your disposal, I've only really got one question for you. Are you not entertained? Forum now, which was the religious, political and commercial hub of ancient Rome. Now, this actual area wasn't unearthed until excavations in about the 19th century. Most of it was covered under debris and clay from like landslides. However, you can see now it's been so well preserved. What I wouldn't give to go back to ancient Rome to hear one of Cicero's stuttery speeches right there at the top at the Senate. Now in the background you can see we have two of the famous 7 hills of Rome, Capitoline Hill and Palatine Hill. Now Palatine Hill contained the palaces of the elite, the emperors who didn't want to maybe mingle with the riffraff down in the Forum. And Capitoline Hill, this was more the political heart of Rome, where the Senate would meet. On top of the Capitoline Hill, on one of the museums, you have probably one of the most famous sculptures in the Roman world, which is the wolf statue nursing Romulus and Remus, the founders of Rome. And over here we have Trajan's Market, built in 100 AD by Emperor Trajan. And it was the first complex series of shops, the first shopping centre in fact, mirror centre, eat your heart out. It's the Vittoriano, this huge monument built to celebrate Victor Emmanuel II, the person who was the first king of a unified Italy. Now why is he called the second? Well, actually the first Victor Emmanuel was king of Sardinia. And Sardinia was part of a unified Italy, so it was the second who unified them all. Now Victor Emmanuel II is actually buried inside the Pantheon, the oldest church in Rome, which we're going to go and see soon. Pantheon this way. Now the word Pantheon means all the gods, and this is Rome's oldest church, and it was originally a pagan temple. It wasn't converted to Christianity until 609 AD. Now, it's also known for having the world's largest oculus, a 30-foot wide circle at the top of the dome, which allows God's eyes to be cast down into the middle of the actual Pantheon. Now, two famous people are buried there. We've got artist Raphael and also Victor Emmanuel II, the first king of a unified Italy. Such a cool job. Look at this. We're running through now the Piazza Navona, the usually bustling piazza of Rome. Quite quiet this morning because it's 6:30 AM, which is lush. Now this piazza has lots of restaurants, street performers normally, but what it does is it displays the genius of Benin. Right, look at this. The fountain, the obelisk, and obviously the church in the background here. Now, such a fantastic place to come and visit. Especially if you're a cinema lover or a book lover, some of you might recognise that fountain there is the place where the fourth cardinal was attempted to be murdered in Dan Brown's Angels and Demons. We're at Tiber now, got the courthouse there in the background, and we're about to come up to the Castel St Angelo. St Peter's Basilica, climbed that dome yesterday. Hadrian Bridge now, or Helios Bridge, which is adorned by beautiful statues, last of which being St Peter, before you reach the Castel St Angelo behind me. Now, this was originally built by Emperor Hadrian, who designed his own tomb quite morbidly, but after that it became a fortress, and for the last 1,000 years it's been a place of refuge for any Pope of Rome if the Vatican's ever attacked. The Pope can get to the castle through a series of secret tunnels to claim refuge in there, should they need to. These famous 135 steps connect the Trinity di Monte with the Spanish embassy at the bottom. So those of you who are wondering why they're called the Spanish steps when they're built in Rome, they were built by a Frenchman, it's because they connect the Spanish embassy with the church up above. Now, the astute eye might notice there's an apartment to the side. Now, this pink apartment to the side is where the poet, English poet John Keats, lived and died, only at the age of 25. Now, this area was known as the English ghetto, and during the Renaissance it was very fashionable for English writers and poets to come and live and reside in Rome. $135 steps. Which, even at 7 AM, is super busy. Now, Trevi is the intersection of 3 streets, and the fountain is actually the end of a Roman aqueduct. Now, the middle statue in the middle of the fountain is actually Oceanus. Many people mistake him for Neptune. Now, the fountain itself pumps 10 million litres of water every single day, and lots of people you'll see there will be tossing coins into the fountain, because it's rumoured that by throwing a coin into the fountain, it's going to bring you a safe return trip back to Rome. Now, what I think's really cool about it is the fact that all the money that's thrown into the fountain is collected and actually donated to charity, which is pretty amazing. Santa Maria Maggiore.